So yeah, we're going to be having a chat this evening about seasonal celebrations, and I guess the context that I'm really interested in seasonal celebrations in this evening is the context of celebrancy, because we're School of Celebrancy, and I suppose, you know, when the most obvious bits of celebrancy, which our first two courses are about, are the hatchings, matchings, and dispatchings end of things. So from you know, obviously namings and welcoming ceremonies for little ones to marriages and hand fastings and vow renewals, and then of course funerals and memorials. But there's a whole area of celebrancy work that I think of as community celebrancy, which are all those other occasions where communities want to come together and have some kind of ceremony or ritual. And obviously, some of those occasions are to celebrate the seasons. And I think in every corner of the world, there are obviously different kinds of seasonal variations. I'm thinking about my husband comes from Indonesia, Sumatra, which is on the equator. So they don't necessarily have seasons in the way that we experience them more in the northern and southern hemispheres, where we get this very kind of cyclical, obvious solar cycle that goes from the equinoxes to the solstices and in between. But there are still seasonal celebrations in terms of harvest cycles. So yeah, this is what I'm going to be talking to Dave and Cerri about, and I'm just going to bring them right on screen now, and so you can see their lovely smiling faces as I introduce Dave and Cerri. I know that some of you in the Druid community will know them only too well, and some of you will have experienced Dave's wonderful music, Dave the Bard. If not, check out his Facebook page, which is linked to this broadcast through, because it's where he's tagged there, where he does his live concerts now and then. But Dave and Cerri, for those of you who don't know, are the leaders of the local Druid gang down in Sussex, the Derrida Gorsay, and they have been running seasonal celebrations, mostly at the Long Man of Wilmington, whom you see pictured on our little event image there, for over 20 years. So I'm going to go right in now with the first question to Dave and Cerri, which is, how did it all start?
A long time ago. Many years ago. We had been going to Philip and Steph's place, the Alachwith Galadin group, and they were heading off for some time to halfway around the world. And we wanted to continue the rituals for the group, but we thought, you know what, it would be really nice to be outside.
And to be more inclusive of other parts.
Yeah, well. Because obviously, if it's in someone's house, then you know you want to know who's coming to your house. Whereas if you're meeting in an open place, well, it's just open to everybody. For me, I've been involved in the kind of pagan community since about '92 in Sussex, and there had been a number of open rituals, but they were very much ad hoc. It was kind of like someone would just say, I'll do Beltane, and then nothing would happen for lunar, you know, for the summer solstice and lunar, and someone would say, oh, I'll do Samhain, and you would have these ad hoc open rituals. And we just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you just knew it was going to happen at the same time for every single one? Yeah. And have them consistent and, you know, always there. And so that's what we did. You know, our first one was the spring equinox 2000.
Yeah.
There were 7 of us there. We had a Pringles tin as a drum.
Wow.
And by Beltane there was 40.
Wow.
You know, and so that's how it kind of started. It was just very informal. We did.
It took us a while to settle on a time and a fixed place.
Yes.
That I think it took us about 3 or 4 things we intended to kind of move around at one point, but that became very impractical. And so we fixed on the Long Man, which just kind of felt right.
Yeah, we went to Chanctonbury Ring for some of them. We had a couple of nighttime open rituals. Our plan was to go to Chanctonbury during the winter and the Long Man during the summer, but you know, that people just couldn't work out where we were going to be. So
is it my imagination, or were you once interviewed on TV about doing rituals at Chanctonbury Ring?
I was on a Everyman program. I think it was 1997 or 6. Yes. And what happened was Philip Shawcrass, Philip and Emma were doing the Avebury Gorseth, and they wanted to bring one to Sussex, and so Philip phoned me and he said, "Where do you reckon would be a good place?" And I said, "Well, the Long Man is good because there's a car park and there's a pub down the road, so it's kind of like Avebury." So the Gorseth of Caer Garanir, they called it, happened once at the Long Man, and that was filmed during that Everyman program, and I was filmed playing the harp during just sitting underneath the roots of one of the old beech trees below Chanctonbury Ring. Yeah. So yeah, that thing follows me around everywhere for years.
I was talking to, I mistakenly thought it was something involving Ronald, but you know, when Philip was interviewing me for Druidcast, I was saying it was the first thing that I'd seen of contemporary Druidry was probably that interview with you and you playing your harp, and I just
well, there you go.
They seem like a nice gang. Yeah. And then, you know, 4 years later, I came your way. Anyway, so for anyone outside of Druidry, could you explain, I know this is like a big question, but could you explain why celebrate the turning of the seasons?
Wow. Why not is the first thing. It's kind of, I mean, if you, regardless of what path you're on, most of the people that kind of are interested in the natural world are interested in their own connection to the natural cycles. And the great thing about the Wheel of the Year is the fact that even though it's a fairly modern idea, even though, you know, various aspects of it have been celebrated for eons in various different ways, it's actually a really good psychological cycle as well as natural cycle. So you take time to tap into how you're feeling in that moment. You take time to feel the earth beneath your feet, to feel the sky above you, to feel the rising and falling of the sun, the turning of the seasons, the way the landscape changes. And it's such a profound way of feeling the magic of nature and kind of allowing yourself to breathe, just breathe with nature. You know, there's all this kind of nonsense that goes on about the human realm, the animal realm, this realm, that realm. It's all such a load of nonsense. Actually, it's just the earth, you know, and how we connect to it. You know, we're not separate from it, we're part of it. And that is a perfect way of working with that. and keeping your mind clear and being grateful for things, taking that moment to just go, I've survived another 6 weeks. Awesome. How fabulous. So what is the review of that? What is my connection to the ancestors with that? What are the stories that continue to be relevant in that? And how do we make our own stories that will continue on? So as the wheel rolls on through the years, it gathers and it moves and it accumulates and becomes something more than just, just a ritual. It's a feeling. It's a journey.
Yeah, and having it every 6 weeks is fabulous, obviously. And one of the things that is also brilliant is to do those ceremonies at the same place. So you see, you know, life can be such a rush. It can be such a, you're chasing your tail, you've got your job going, you've got things to do when you get home. Just once every 6 weeks or so, just slow down, go take a pilgrimage to one of the sacred sites. For us it's the Long Man, and you just take that time to slow down and to connect and to mark the turning season of the year. And it might be for some people the only moment they do that, because they get back in their car and on the Monday they're back to work again. But they look around, you can see from the Long Man, you can see the entire weald below you. You can see the fields of corn and sometimes their oilseed rape, and you can see the changes that happen from the green corn of the solstice to the golden corn of Lunacy, and just marking those times and being in the same place for Lunacy for 20 times, you really get to know that space. It's that's been marvelous, I think.
That's it's lovely to hear both of you speaking so eloquently about that. I mean, I know why we do it, and they become like just richer and richer and more full of old friends that you greet again, don't they? And when I say old friends, I'm not thinking so much the human friends, but you get to know which plants are around at those times of year, and which what the bird life and animal life is like. And it's beautiful. So you mentioned that one of the reasons that you took it outside was so that you could open it up. And I guess I wanted to kind of delve further into that and say, well, why did you want to open it up? Why did you decide to do open rituals? And how did that change, or did it change the way that you conducted those rituals and ceremonies, and what kinds of people come along? Sorry, that was a whole little bundle of questions for you.
What was the first question again?
Why did you take it outside?
Right.
How did that change things? And how did you change the way you did things because of that?
Why did we take it outside? We've
why
asked
did you take it? Sorry, no. Why did you open it up? Sorry, not why.
Well, no, I think the outside is an equally important question, because we've asked ourselves that many times over the years.
In the rain and the snow.
One of the things you realise when you do outside open rituals, and we haven't, up until the pandemic, of course, that changed everything. But up until that point, we hadn't missed one. Snow, hail, rain, sun, and you stand there sometimes and think, this is why they built churches. But so yes, we have questioned sometimes the outside thing, but man, it makes you feel alive, doesn't it? But
no, why did you open it up was the actual first question, really. But why did you think that open rituals would be a great idea?
I think the thing is that there's always been a thing about inclusivity in all kinds of aspects. And also, you work under the eye of the sun, quite literally, or not when it's cloudy and rainy. And Druidry has a reputation of being an open. It's an open door. It's not behind closed doors. It's always been there in the eye of the sun, and part of that is kind of like to give people a chance to ask questions, to see what this is about, for people to bring their parents or their kids or their, other people in, because, 20 years ago, it wasn't as common as it is now for pagans to be doing their thing quite visibly and openly. And it, I'm trying to find the right words for it, because it's not like an outreach thing. It's not kind of like a conscious
availability.
Let's just educate the locals. No, nothing like that. But it's part of being with nature and being with that, and for those words to ring out across the countryside, and for people who are walking past who might stand there and go, what on earth is that lot? They're a funny bunch. And then they stand and they listen to the words and they go, oh, actually, that sounds quite nice. They're actually talking about being kind and lovely and isn't nature wonderful and all of that kind of thing. So it's about reaching out and about kind of touching hearts and minds in a way that is genuine and open and not fearful. I mean, we've had the most extraordinary people come up the hill quite unexpectedly, because the Long Man is a place where people pilgrimage, and I mean, we had Jesus and Mary come up one day.
We did. That was a surprise, but
okay.
You're very welcome.
Was that at Christmas by any chance?
It was at Samhain.
Yes.
It was actually at Samhain.
It was at Samhain.
Oh, okay.
Quite extraordinary. This chap who was called Jesus had this Sao Paulo, is it called, the beautiful little piece of wood that their shamans use for healings and for doing all sorts of things. And he blew my mind with this stuff because he offered it as part of the ceremony. And that's one of the things that we've always tried to be with the Gorseth, is to be open and inclusive. When I write the ceremonies, I don't have specific people in mind, and I don't prescribe that they use those specific words that I'm writing. I'm writing the ritual from my perspective. But the whole idea is actually that everybody adds to that it's their ritual, that, Wiccans or witches or druids or shamans from South America,
Egyptian dancers, Native American groups.
Yes.
Passing dog walkers.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
People who we thought were coming for the Gorseth, and we go, come on, come in, and then stand up, and they're like, I have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah,
but
we just came in for a picnic, but and a majority of the time, all the time they've joined in and thoroughly enjoyed it, or they've just sat on the outside, had their picnic, while this big circle of like 80 people are chanting the Awen next to them. And it's not kind of outreach, but it is. It's letting people who just experience Druidry and experience Druid ritual,
And when you say that, actually, I'm thinking, of course, I'm recalling that, it was my first brush with Druidry. I knew somebody else who was on the Obod course, and she had the copy of the Touchstone magazine. It said on the back that you did those, open ritual at the Long Man, and we said, should we go along to that? And I was like, I'm quite interested. I saw one of those druids on telly a few years ago, and they seemed quite nice. And I was a bit interested in it, and it was coming along to the Lunacer ritual in the year 2000, actually. So 21 years ago. that's what made, you know, I don't see how I would have joined OBOD and got on this path otherwise, because it was coming along and feeling that sense of inclusivity, feeling that it was all very, you know, what, as you've been talking about and as you're showing here, very grounded, and yeah, very down to earth, yeah, just, but at the same time, you know, getting down to that kind of deeper level, and yeah, drawing in the magic somehow,
Yeah.
but not in a woo way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not no cloak flapping.
Oh, I like a good cloak flap every now and again.
When the wind is fierce, there's plenty of cloak flapping.
Can I just ask you, David Cerri, can you, because this is the first time I'm doing this in this special studio with you, can you see the comments that are coming in?
Yes. Well, I can see Mark and Henna and Hapona and Debbie.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hello everybody. Yeah.
And just to say to anyone who's joined us since I mentioned this, because we had a few more people come in, that we can see your comments and questions. So yeah, if you want to, if you have any questions that you would like me to ask, or that you would like to ask Dave and Cerri, you know, do feel free to bung them in.
Yeah.
So do you feel, you know, I know you mentioned at one point, Cerri, when I said, you know, about why celebrate the turning of the seasons, you mentioned something about it being a kind of relatively modern thing. Do you feel like you're kind of reviving an ancient tradition in the landscape, or have you got any feelings about, you know, what kind of things may have gone on at the Long Man before? Is that important to you or not?
To be honest, yes and no, in as much as, you know, it's like everything. It's kind of course, the history of what's happened across the years there. I mean, Alexander.
Yeah, there you know,
so many magical
modern
people.
Ancestors of spirit are scattered on the
Yeah.
Long Man. You know, Doreen Valiente, I think, and Alexander's there. And
also on the, for anybody who's not familiar with the Long Man, you have the figure himself, and he seems to be holding staves. There's you know, there's ums and ahs about who he is and what he is or whatever. However, he's been there for hundreds of years now. And above him, there are ancestors' barrows, and the place is Neolithic, I think. Was it flint mines and things up there as well? So the place has been a place of ancestor work of many different kinds for thousands of years. So there's a connection there, in as much as the history of the land is wrapped in how it's shaped by our history and by the people of many different parts who have been there and continues to be used there. There's the stories. I mean, when you're working with the agricultural festivals, you're looking at the landscape. You're looking at a landscape that's still farmed, that's still you know, working, and has been working ever since we learned how to use tools. There are the folk tales. There are, you know, on top of all of the natural cycles within and without. So, yeah, I mean, the connection to that, I've kind of lost the thread of where I was going now. I'm just on a bit of a ramble.
Oh, it's a great ramble. I like it, Cerri.
One of the things that we didn't know about the Long Man, actually two of the things, amongst the things we didn't know about the Long Man, is that we gather on a circular flat hill below the Long Man, which is believed to be the spoils of the flint mine that you can see scarred right on his right into the hill. And it's this flat hill, but it's perfectly circular, perfectly flat, fits about 90 to 100 people in a nice big circle. Yeah. what we didn't know for a few years, to be honest, but we did notice, is that the Long Man is on the northern face of the Downs, and he disappears into shadow at Samhain.
Yes.
And the sun does not touch the Long Man until the spring equinox of next year.
Wow.
Yes.
And interestingly, the sun kind of rolls down the hill.
Yeah.
Through the second half of the year as it goes down. It literally rolls down the hill, which is quite funky, I have to say.
And
amazing.
Yeah,
carry on.
Yeah, and the other thing that we didn't know is that for years we have been with the Gorseth blessing the fields below the Long Man, offering our blessing and thanks for the harvest and for the fruitfulness of that harvest. And look, for many years they were oilseed rape, and then it became corn, and it stayed, well, wheat, it became barley, wheat, cereal crop underneath the two massive fields of the Long Man. And so we celebrate the death and rebirth of John Barleycorn. We just did it, at Lunacy, just gone. And then 2 years ago, we visited the Long Man Brewery, which is on the other side of the hill. And we were just talking to the chaps behind the bar, and they said that all the beer is made using the barley from those fields below the Long Man of Wilmington. So we said, well, we're Druids, and for 20 years we've been blessing your beer.
Did they give you a free pint?
Well, no, but
damn it.
Wouldn't it be great to have blessed by Druids, Long Man Ale, blessed by Druids? But yeah. So when you get that relationship over such a long period of time with a space, you become part of the mythology and part of the story of the landscape. So it really is quite something else to have that relationship to that space.
Yeah. I was just reading some of the questions down there as well. It's
There's some lovely questions coming through from others. Marcus asked, when was your first ritual gathering and what was it like? He's in a seed group. They're about to do their first one next week.
First ritual gathering, what of any kind, or of the Gorseth?
I'm guessing your first ritual gathering, because he's talking about a seed group, so maybe a seed gathering.
Okay. Well, that would have. God, when was that? 97.
Yeah.
But it was late 97. And it was incredibly exciting. It was the thing to do, and the thing I think to remember when you're working in a group is that to listen a lot. You don't want to be overbearing with your opinions. You want to listen, because the group is there to express the group mind, if you like. And if you can do that and work like that, group magic in a seed group or a grove is fantastic. But what I would also say is something that I think both of us have learned over the years is it can never replace your personal connection or your personal path. The group is something other than that as well. So I think it's a mistake sometimes to think that the group will answer all of your spiritual needs. You still have to have your personal daily practice, your personal connection, and all those kinds of things. But it's fantastic. For a start, you get to stand in a circle and chant the Awen with others, which is something else, always something else. So good luck, Marcus. Yes.
I think the other thing that we learned very quickly was not to take hierarchical roles, because that is a death knell to magical kind of expression for people. Because when you start when it isn't a community work, everybody needs each session. I mean, particularly, let's take the Gorseth for example. because it's an open thing. When we work, Dave and I kind of hold the energy of it, but actually all of the individual pieces are people who volunteer in the moment, because it's about everyone feeling that is their ritual.
Yes.
Everybody is participating. They're not observing, they are participating.
And it's not the Dave and Kerry show.
It's not the Dave and Kerry show. You know, ego is a fabulous thing, but it needs to be set to one side. And also, it's like when somebody writes a ritual, the script is great to hold the energy, but it's a starting point. It should never be cast in stone, because that is also a death knell to magical flow
and creativity.
You know, and creativity. You know, you need people to be able to read those words that have been written and go, oh, I get what you're saying here. And if they are...
Sorry about that, it's my dad's phone, he'll answer it.
You know,
sorry, I hope he'll answer it. Okay, he's answered it.
Live, you see.
Live
That's
TV.
the thing, live TV.
But it's, you know, the scripts are great starting points, and you know, people can become very precious about their scripts, but they really shouldn't be, because you have to allow the magic to flow. And when you're too worried about what words you're going to be saying or what order you're going to be saying in, then you're putting a block on things. That I'm quite vociferous about this. It's something that I feel really passionate about. I've been in so many ceremonies where people are so like, I didn't say the right words.
And nothing happened.
It's kind of like, but they walked around the circle in the wrong way, or fire went before water. So what? It doesn't matter. It's just, as long as all things get done, it's okay. Actually okay. Yeah. You know, that sort of thing.
And we're clear about the intents of things as well.
It's the intention that is important. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to come back to Gabriel's question in a minute, but Debbie's asking, and you know, because you're talking about writing the rituals there, did you start with the OBOD rituals and then move on to writing them yourself? And if so, why? And that kind of relates to Danny is asking more or less the same question. Do you design your own rituals? So so it's a bit about the writing side of things. We may not have time for everyone's questions, sorry, but I will come back to Gabriel's before we get to.
Well, we certainly. I think it's always good to know and start somewhere.
Yes.
And the OBOD rituals, when you are, you know, are we definitely started with those.
Yeah.
And then we moved. We quite quickly. We realised, connected what the energy of the festival was about.
Yeah. And
then started thinking, well, what does it mean to us?
Yeah.
And so we did. You know, we did put them to one side. And what I will say is we keep the opening and closing of every ceremony the same.
Absolutely.
The exact same order, and that order came from the early OBOD Guerci. So we will start by giving peace to the quarters. We'll cast the circle. We'll bless with fire and water. We'll invite the four directions in. We'll do the Druid's prayer. Then we'll do the Awen, and that acts as a kind of first bookend, and then the ritual will start. The kind of main section of the ritual will come after that.
Yeah.
And then we will have a nice Stedford, where we share some food and drink, and then we will do the latter bookend starts with the oath of peace, the thanking of the quarters, and uncasting of the circle. And so you notice sometimes when people come up the hill and we start doing the casting of the circle and the calling of the quarters, sometimes, very rarely, but you can sense that people are going, come on, I just want the lunas a bit, you know, this bit. But what we always do is we always do those, because it acts as setting the space. It delineates the circle. It delineates the sacred space and time, but it also puts on the brakes, because people have driven from London. They've driven from all different places. They've arrived at the Long Man. They've walked away up to the hill. And what those what that kind of setting up of the circle does is it allows people to just slow down, to just put on the brakes, to take the 3 breaths, to watch the circle and that kind of stuff be set up, so that by the time the central section of the seasonal festival starts, they're absolutely in the right frame of mind to listen and to hear what's going on and to take part in whatever's going on. So we do still, anyone from Obod who came up the hill would recognise it as a Druid Obod ritual, but it would be the central parts that would be different.
I've heard it described as a safe container. I think I heard Helen and Mark Widsford Dean, who are the Orkney pagan celebrants. I know that they do rituals there. I've heard them talk about the kind of Obod structure in the same way as just being it's a really good kind of solid vessel. And you need a vessel, don't you, to hold. If you want to hold something delicious and nourishing and maybe a bit hot and spicy, or a bit wet and whatever it is, you need a really strong vessel, and it is the strong vessel, I guess.
Definitely.
I want to come back to Gabriel's question, because it's a great question, and it's lovely that we're getting these questions like from Gabriel and Mark, that are people that are joining us, and getting some inspiration and hopefully, a little bit of guidance and some good ideas as to how to go ahead. So Gabriel's asking, what would be good early celebrations? I'm guessing by that she means, the good ones to start in with, to do with the perhaps hesitant or suspicious population in Brittany. They did a Samhain bonfire with a stuffed guy full of all the things everyone wanted to let go of that year. Well, any hot tips for Gabriel?
I mean, the winter solstice is obviously a beautiful, gentle ceremony that is very inclusive. The rebirth of the sun. I mean, what could be, threatening about that? So it's the rebirth of the year, the rebirth of the sun, symbolized by people just holding a gentle candle, or and outside that often is a blooming problem. but you can try it. It might be less windy in Brittany. I don't know.
Good storm lanterns.
Storm lantern or something like that. But if you were going to start with one, then that would be a really, very, very, very gentle, seasonal ceremony to start with. And of course, that then
Harvest Festival as well. That's also a very nice thing.
The autumn equinox, maybe something like that would be another.
Celebrating the bounty of the earth, something very familiar to people of a Christian persuasion. That whole kind of thing is very, very accessible. And very obvious when you look at the center of your circle. If you put your altar together, if you've got apples and fruit and corn and all of this kind of stuff on there, and people are kind of looking at it. But interestingly, one of the ones that we've had more people watching from on top of the hill and listening to is our Samhain ones, because we do a roll call for people we've lost. And we do an honouring of people who have left us in that year. And it is one of the most emotional and inclusive. And we find often that when people just listen to the heartfelt stuff that people are saying, that brings an emotion in that people were like, I didn't even know that we were allowed to do this. I didn't know that we were allowed to express these things, and that everybody in this circle is being open and supportive and emotional, and nothing bad's happening here. So it's so bizarrely one of the ones that should be more scary can actually be one of the ones that's more inclusive. How you do it.
I'm guessing I'm just hearing you say that, and I've been doing a few seasonal celebrations myself, and the one that I've done for the last 3 years, I haven't called it Samhain, because it's a kind of, this time of year is not just a Druids idea. I've been doing what I've been calling an autumn memorial at at a crematorium where there's a little chapel in the grounds where I
Oh.
do most of my work, and very similar, just holding that space for people to come and be together in that space
Yeah.
of remembering their loved ones.
Yeah.
I'm conscious, but just before we went live, Dave and Kerry said, if it looks like we're going to start running out of things to say or repeating ourselves, we can always cut it short. But I knew very well that it wouldn't be that, rather that we will be, running towards time. I kind of, was aiming to around the kind of 45-minute mark before we finished with a blessing. But before we come on to that, can I just ask you, have you got any particular tales or anecdotes that you would like to share about things that have happened when you've been conducting these open rituals at the Long Man?
Oh,
So many.
yeah. I mean, where do you start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of my favourites was Jesus and Mary coming up with his beautiful shaman at that point. Was so perfect. They had no idea that we were going to be there, and they just slotted in to this thing. I suppose the other one, there was the Christian who tried to
Yeah, we had they've been good things and they've been challenging things.
Very challenging.
And one of the challenging things that was this old gentleman just walked up the side of the hill, stood by the side of the hill, and started chanting in tongues at us to try and save our souls,
Yeah.
and we
and then he tried to join the circle.
Yeah.
And we just very gently said to him, please respect this place, because we would respect your ceremony if you were in church. And he was like, oh, okay. I think he thought that we would be aggressive or challenging or whatever, but we just very gently asked him to be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was a bit taken aback, and he retreated and kind of just stood there watching.
But there have been times where we've been holding like a Samhain ceremony, and dog walkers have just come down the side of the hill and just shouted out, "Blessings of Samhain!"
Yes,
and it's that's when you realise you're part of the scenery and you're part of the community, And I think the other thing is children growing up. When you've been doing something for 20 years, there have been children who have come to the Gorseth 5 years of age. Who are now 26, and we've known those children, watched them grow in their lives, and seen their, people have met their partners on the hill, it's just been
the community has built and has such a beautiful vibe that, and all through this horrible pandemic time, we've been doing like online rituals and things, and trying. People have needed this kind of connection with something soulful that actually holds them together when life is very uncertain, and when the fearmongers are out there and kind of everything is kind of like this, to come and find a place of peace and sanctuary within that is and those things are powerful things.
Before the pandemic, our last ritual was Imolg 2020. And then our first online attempt at something was obviously Spring Equinox 2020. And we had our first open ritual back at the Long Man for 18 months at Lunister, just a couple of Sundays ago. And on the way to the car, me and Kerry were saying, how many do you think will be there? And we said, 20, something like that. And whoever's there, we're just going to hold a space, and we're just going to reintroduce ourselves to the site. And we're just going to look across the circle and see whoever's there in 3D for the first time. We can look at, you've got the back of your head as well as the front of your head, and when we walked up the hill from the car, there was just so many people all dressed in their robes and stuff. Kerry burst into tears. It was wonderful because it was just like coming home. And we formed the circle. We did the circle, and I tell you, I knew it'd get me. Hearing 45 or so. I can't remember. I don't know exactly how many people were there on that Sunday. 45 people singing the Awen again for the first time in a year and a half together with that, all those voices. I was in bits. I got halfway through the first and my voice just cracked, and it was just the most beautiful thing to see everybody and hear everybody back again, and now we'll be back there again, hopefully.
And things they've had to change because we're not sharing a cup of water or drink anymore. We're not going to be sharing food. You know, we didn't hold hands, which was hard, you know, and we gave each other distance, and we asked whether people wanted to hug or not hug. And it was absolutely consensual, kind, and beautiful.
And it really was something else.
Just people being kind and considerate and gentle with each other in that space. It was just more than, it was just beautiful, And I think that's what it does when you have a community that cares for that. And it takes time to build that community, and it takes those experiences. This is back to Marcus again. You know, things take time to level out with the things, and you find your places, and everybody knows their strengths and their weaknesses, and you know, and then if people don't want to step up, you make them.
Yeah.
It's looking for a volunteer.
Just gently facilitate.
That kind of thing. So you encourage people to actually express themselves, and that's what this stuff is all about. Empowering people.
It's good.
Yeah. I love it. I love everything you've been saying. I love what you've been saying about building community and about empowering people and about being inclusive and enabling people. You know, they're really core celebrancy skills. As like you say, it's not something that you've come to watch. It's something you've come to take part in. I think that is a lovely place to draw our discussion to a close. But let's draw our gathering. I love this feeling when we do these live broadcasts that we're having this little kind of global gathering across the continents, and we're all in this little virtual space together. So let's just I'd asked Dave to do a lunar blessing, in fact, and then I thought, we might have people on the other side, on the southern hemisphere, joining us, where of course it's Imbolc. So I had something up my sleeve for that. But of course, Kerry and Dave are ahead of me, and they have covered all angles. So Dave and Kerry, could I ask you to complete our evening with a seasonal blessing or two?
To all in the northern hemisphere, a lunar blessing. As the power of Lunar or Lammas builds, let there be a bountiful harvest for all. This harvest has begun in earnest, so let the scythe cut clean, sharp, and swift, so that all is ripe and ready will fall. As the golden seeds, so full of potential, fall to the ground, let them be gathered in. Let them be cherished, let them be nurtured and honoured, for they hold our past and herald our future. May the gods of plenty be generous, the gods of change be gentle, and may the gods of healing be all powerful.
And my experience of the Southern Hemisphere, our experience of the Southern Hemisphere is Australia. Now, I'm aware there is more to the Southern Hemisphere on Australia, but this is for that area of land, and for the Southern Hemisphere, for Imbolc. As the dark, cold morning gives way to light, and the world shows its face dazzling in youth, so the leaves of the gum trees and leaf-bare branches bow to the passing dance of old Jack Frost. Mist moves lazily across the land. Dawn's light arrives later, and the lady brings life with every footstep. As the galah calls and the kookaburra laughs with delight, may the returning spring bring hope, peace, and joy. So may it be.
So may it be.
So may it be. Oh, thank you so much, Dave and Kerry, for those beautiful, beautiful blessings. A little taster there for anyone who's not been to one of the Anderida Gorsedd rituals. I'm sure that they would be tempted to come along if they're ever in the area. And you always do them on the Sunday immediately following the calendar date of the ritual, is that right?
It's kind of the nearest Sunday.
The nearest Sunday.
Which is
At
sometimes
2 o'clock.
difficult when it's when it falls midweek.
Yeah.
So it's worth checking the Anderida Gorsedd has a Facebook group. You can look it up and join there.
I could really feel the power of those blessings, washing over me and enchanting this, little space that I'm sitting in here. And it just made me think again. I just love the idea of enchanted space, and that you have just woven these circles and circls of enchantment in that space at the Long Man, and long may that continue.
Yeah, thank you.
And may all that continue to kind of resonate out, for those that perhaps come long after we've walked the land, to just feel that sense of enchantment there.
In years to come, they will say the ancients worshipped here.
Yeah.
And that'll be us.
Really lovely to see you guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the broadcast now, but it will stay up on the page. And if people want to add further questions or comments when you're watching this further down the line, I'll do my best to keep an eye out for them and send replies, and perhaps
Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, really lovely to see
your
faces and
familiar names and
friends.
Everything. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, River.
Thank you, River.
Thanks for coming.
Peace.